What's up? What's up? You know what time it is. It is 5-star matchups, man. And I can't wait to talk about these matchups because Steelers versus Dolphins. This is going to be an exciting one. But make sure you like this video. And if you have not done so, make sure you subscribe as well. But first matchup we got to look at, man, are the Steelers defensive backs, which are healthy now. Shout out to Cam Sutton, Levi Wallace, Akella Witherspoon. But that trio versus Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I'm sorry, I like to dance. I'm sorry. But when you're talking about Tyreek and Jalen, we know what they are. We know who they are. Tyreek Hill leading the league in receiving yards, 700 plus yards. And then you're talking about Jalen Waddle, number 5 in the league in receiving yards with around 530 receiving yards. But it's not just the fact that they have a lot of yards, it's how they are generating them. The Miami Dolphins are really intentional in terms of taking shots to these guys, man, but they will also not just stretch the field vertically with your deep overs, your regular fly routes and things like that. They will also work the underneath and allow these guys opportunities to run after the catch. 5-yard dump off pass, 3-yard drags, and they're taking them 15 yards and stuff like that. So the tackling element really becomes at the forefront this week. And when you're talking about our DBs who are all healthy, thank you, Jesus, thank you. But when you're talking about those guys, man, not only are they going to have to do a really good job of keeping a lid on the defense and not allowing Tyreek and Jalen to have those explosive 50, 60-yard receptions, but they also are going to need to be very buttoned up in terms of their tackling of the catch. Because, like I said, Miami is going to make sure they force feed Tyreek and Jalen and make these DBs in secondary have to tackle on the perimeter. So that is the first matchup. But if our guys do those things in terms of tackling the catch every single time, because all it takes is one time. That's the thing when you're playing this group. One missed tackle could be the difference. So as long as they stay buttoned up with the tackling and keep a lid on this defense, I like what we're looking like, baby. I like what we're looking like. But now it's time for the second matchup, and you know I can't wait to talk about the homie here. I'm talking about the NFL sack leader. Yeah, emphasis on NFL sack leader because it's week 6? Well, we just got done week 6. Now we're going to week 7. So it's like, yeah, it's a big enough sample size, man. My guy's kicking some big time butt. But I'm talking Alex Highsmith versus Greg Little. That's what it is on paper right now. Obviously, he is questionable. He's been dealing with an Achilles injury. And honestly, when you're talking about the Dolphins tackle position, whether it's Austin Jackson, a guy that's been on injury reserve since the first game of the season, they're hoping that he might be able to get back into the fold. Terran Armstead is another guy that missed last week. Really good tackle, but he's still banged up. He's been questionable and limited throughout practice. So Greg Little could be the guy because he is the guy that has been their swing tackle in the past and things like that. But he is also the guy that will start if one of those guys, whether it be Austin Jackson or Terran Armstead, are not able to go. And if that is the case, Alex Highsmith, man, Sunday night, she'll come in our party, baby. Sunday night is your time to go ahead and put it on wax in prime time. Because to me, Greg Little cannot block Alex consistently. Alex is on a tear this season in terms of his ability to dip and rip with his pass rush, his spin move, or just his patented speed rush as well. This dude, to me, is really putting it all together consistently week after week right now. And when you're looking at Greg, man, I just think that it's more of a just a talent issue right there when you're talking about the difference between those two guys. Now, Austin Jackson, a little bit more higher pedigree, but he literally, I think he played 5 snaps, 10 snaps in that first, in the opener for the Dolphins and has not played football since. So to me, it's hard to envision a scenario where Alex Highsmith is not being a key contributor. And when you're talking about this matchup in particular with these wide receivers, right? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, pass rush becomes more important. Pass rush becomes even more at a premium this week because you cannot allow Tua or whoever will be back there at quarterback if Tua is not completely able to go and stuff like that. But to me, Alex Highsmith has to win, and he has to win consistently. Now, I don't anticipate them giving him a ton of one-on-ones, but if they do, which they have done in the past with this Dolphins team, last week against Minnesota, they did not help these tackles out that often. They allowed them to just be one-on-one. And the stats showed, you look at how many pressures, QB hits, and sacks were allowed, it wasn't pretty. But if they repeat that same thought process versus Alex Highsmith, it has to look the exact same way, man. So I'm definitely excited to see what he can do in prime time. Third matchup, though, we're going to talk about Minka Fitzpatrick. Hello, revenge game. Can't wait to see him, man, because I've seen him fired up. Cincinnati Bengals, he was fired up. I can only imagine what this is going to look like. First time returning to the scene of the crime. Ooh-wee, ooh-wee. But we talking about him versus Tua Tagovailoa. Now for Tua, it's his first game back, right? Missed 2 games, obviously, after the very, very traumatic and very, very violent concussions that he sustained. 2 of them in 4 days was not pretty. Obviously, the NFL reacted the way that it did in response to that. But the big thing is this, man. Tua likes to force feed Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. Tua also likes to take chances at times, even though they've paid off. Some of the payoffs have been more on the flukier side than per se a high probability of repeating said combat throws and stuff and tougher throws and things along that nature. But to me, man, this is one of those ones where Minka is going to be fired up. Minka is going to be on one. But Minka also has to be able to create some splash here. Because when you're talking about a quarterback that's willing to put the ball in the air and you know the guys that they are targeting, well, Minka does an excellent job of being able to roam around the field. Now, I will say Miami does also do a good job of identifying talented defenders, highlighting them. You talk about Devin McCourty with the New England Patriots. There's certain things that they like to do with him, similar to what we like to do with Minka. And yes, the Dolphins would scheme some of that up. So when you're talking about Minka in this capacity as well, he's going to have to be on his P's and Q's because obviously the Dolphins are going to be highlighting him every single play, knowing where he is. But I do feel like Tua will give him an opportunity to make a play. And that's the time where we need Minka to go ahead and do what he does, being the splash king that he is, and ultimately continuing on with his pace for Defense Player of the Year potentially. So when we talk about Minka versus Tua, I can't wait for this one, baby. This is going to be a good one as well. But then after that, man, for the 4th matchup, we got to talk about Big Dan Moore and Chooks Okorafor versus Jalen Phillips. Now, Chooks and Dan have both been playing really well this season, man. They have stepped it up. The consistency has definitely improved in a major way, and it's night and day from what we saw in the preseason and even dating back to a year ago. The consistency has been the most promising part. Now, we're not saying that it's perfect because they still have a lot of room to grow when you're talking about some of the stuff that they still have struggled with at times in season. But largely, they have kept the pocket clean, and they're going to have another tough task this week. Now, Jalen Phillips' numbers sack-wise this season aren't anything crazy, 1.5 sacks. But he is coming off a really, really productive game against the Minnesota Vikings where he had 3 quarterback hits, where he was able to generate a lot of pressure. And this is a former first-round pick from a year ago. The guy knows how to rush the passer. 8.5 sacks last year. He is long. He is athletic. He has power. Can do speed rushes as well. So when you're talking about him, it's more so just when you're looking at him this year, it still looks like he's trying to figure it out and put it all together. Well, let's hope he does not figure it out this week. But either way, this is a matchup that at this stage in Jalen's career, Dan and Chooks have to win this. Period. Keep the quarterback clean. Kenny Pickett, if it is him, everything is looking like it will be. But if it is or not him, either way, you have to keep the quarterback clean. And it starts with protecting right here, man, because this is their most gifted one-on-one pass rusher. I know Melvin Ingram is there, but his productivity is different in terms of how he is generating it, in contrast to Jalen Phillips, who is really a guy that can win one-on-ones consistently. So that's why for me, man, Dan and Chooks, you have to be on your screws this week, baby. And now it's time for the 5th and final 5-star matchup. And this is a simple one, baby. This is real simple. You got to talk about the offensive line as a unit because they have been playing well as a unit. But they still been having a little bit of miscommunication. That continues to pop up on tape, even dating back to this Buccaneers game. And when we're talking about this matchup, offensive line versus the Miami Dolphins blitz package, the Miami Dolphins defense leads the league in blitzes. Not saying that they are overly productive with it, but they blitz a ton. And they do a really good job of disguising. And that continues to show up on tape. Even though they're not necessarily winning a lot, they do have free rushers because they confuse protections. And it's not just linebackers blitzing. It's linebackers, nickel. They're twisting in terms of D linemen, D tackles, D ends, stuff like that. It's a lot of moving pieces going on when you're looking at how they align and how they like to deploy their disguise. So for our offensive line, who, like we said, they are improving, but they're still a work in progress. They have to make sure their communication is A1 because you cannot allow free rushers. That's the biggest way that Miami generates pressure, is just confusing people. They confuse you, they get a free rusher because they don't have the personnel to just win one-on-ones. So communication is at a premium for our offensive line because I do feel if we give our quarterbacks time, they will be fine. They will be able to carve up this defense, man, and certain elements of it, because I love our wide receivers in this particular matchup, man. But it starts up front. These guys are going to have to be on their screws, man, because like I said, the Miami Dolphins, they do a lot of blitzing, a lot of just, you go this way. It's kind of like the Dennis Rodman thing. Yeah, man, go this way. It's like that. All right. That's how they get it in, man. But either way, I still feel good about it, man. So with that being said, you let me know your thoughts on the 5-star matchups. And also just this matchup, Steelers versus Dolphins as a whole, man. Are we feeling good about it this week? Drop your score prediction if you got time. But either way, man, I appreciate you for tuning in. And until next time, baby. Peace.